Welcome to Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Gemini, and we are welcoming back Susan Weed as part of our Health and Wellness series. Tonight, we are delving into the topic of preventing prostate cancer. Welcome back, Susan. Let's get started with our discussion on prostate.
Thank you once again for having me here. I'm really excited to be here and to start continue our discussion about what's going on with the prostate. What did we do in the first week? We talked about prostate, just some general things, and about saw palmetto, a really important herb, which then in the second week when we did our alphabet soup with the PSA and the LUPS and the BPH, we started to see how saw palmetto was effective and what it was doing and what kinds of things were going on. And, of course, in our first talk as well, we also talked about the fact that the prostate goes into like a deep sleep from puberty until middle age, where normal hormonal changes suddenly wake up the prostate and things start happening there. And that causes a swelling in the prostate, especially among Western men in Western countries. And that medical science has a really hard time being able to tell the difference between this benign and normal swelling of the prostate that many men will experience and cancer, which is causing the prostate to swell. And we will, for over 50 years now, we've been at war with cancer. And as with anything that we are at war with, one can never actually win at war. And what happens is that we get kind of duped into living in ways that we wouldn't ordinarily live because of the fears that war brings up. And we talked last week about that men are trained in a way to be fearful of prostate cancer and to think that the only thing they can do is have a PSA test. And that's why we talked last week about the Preventative Services Task Force recommendation that men not have PSA tests. But I would like to go even further than that because I don't have mammograms. People say, well, you don't have mammograms, don't you take care of your breasts? I'm like, wait a second. Not having a mammogram, not having a PSA test doesn't mean we're not taking care of ourselves. As a matter of fact, doing those things doesn't mean we are taking care of ourselves. Taking care of ourselves is a day-by-day lifestyle decision. It's about how we move and how we eat and how we think and how we feel. And especially when it comes to preventing cancer, and especially when it comes to preventing prostate cancer, dietary choices have an enormous impact. There are so many foods that have been shown to protect against prostate cancer. And I want to tell you right here that in a way, I was a little snowed. The amount of research that has been done on food and prostate cancer is staggering. It's like maybe 50 times more than the amount of research that's been done on food and breast cancer. I wrote a whole book on breast cancer, included all of these foods, but even I was stunned at the amount of research that has been focused on what foods to eat to help prevent prostate cancer. And they're delicious foods. The most important ones are the ones that contain sulforaphane, and those are primarily members of the cabbage family and members of the onion garlic family. Also, things that contain lycopene, like cooked tomatoes and cooked, dried, or other ways prepared apricots. Quercetin, which is a very interesting compound, and it's found in onion skins, apple skins, and all kinds of what we might call China tea, black tea, green tea, white tea, all contain quercetin. Selenium, incredibly important, and we get that from nuts and seeds. And the phytosterols, more popularly known as phytoestrogens, which I'm focusing on getting from lentils and red clover, although, as Dr. James Duke said, every single plant in the bean family contains phytosterols. Also, flax seeds, kelp, avocado, pecans, and fatty fish. 3 or more servings a week of vegetables in the cabbage family reduce overall risk of prostate cancer by 50%. Cook them Raw broccoli and cauliflower, in fact, everything in this family, contain enzyme inhibitors that prevent the conversion of indole-3 carbinol into cancer-preventing D-indolylmethane. So you got to cook them. Eating them from the crudités is anti what you're trying to get from these plants. Cook them until they change color. Cook them until they are no longer crisp. Other compounds in the cabbage family plants help the body get rid of cancer-promoting substances created by grilling meat. So now you know you want that hamburger, eat your coleslaw. And you might say, wait a second, that isn't cooked. But remember, we talked about the 5 ways of cooking or breaking the cell wall, which is heat, cold, dehydration, fermentation, and soaking in oil. So the coleslaw is cooked because the cabbage has been soaking in mayonnaise or oil long enough to get it into your body. Pour tomato sauce on your broccoli for a 1-2 punch against prostate cancer. They work better together. Remember, a great tip for boys, that pizza helps prevent prostate cancer. Cooked tomatoes are one of the best ways to prevent prostate cancer, according to more than 50 different studies. 2 servings a week of cooked tomatoes, tomato sauce, reduce prostate cancer risk by 36%. 4 servings a week reduces it a couple of percent more, but not too much. 10 servings a week, however, will bump it up to 45%. In animal studies, tomato consumption lowered testosterone levels. Lycopene and other biochemical constituents are much more available when consumed with oil. That's why we want our tomato sauce on our pizza. Just drinking tomato juice is not going to do the same thing that actually eating pizza would. Dried tomatoes, olive oil, and garlic team up for your health in my dried tomato pate in the recipe section and down there. Sexual and reproductive health, the wise woman way. Quercetin, remember that strange-sounding stuff that I said was in apples and onion skins? It's a compound that actually actively discourages cancer, and it can even slow down the growth of cancers that are already present. Applesauce is an exceptionally good source of quercetin, and of course, if you make your own applesauce, you can leave the peels on, and that's where you're going to find most of that quercetin. Quercetin is a bioflavonoid, and it not only reduces prostate cancer risk, it also reduces prostate pain and urinary symptoms. Urinary symptoms, however, are only moderately improved. And when people actually took quercetin in pills, they did get some side effects like rashes and headaches and tingling in the extremities, but not when you get your quercetin from apple skins, grapes, citrus fruits, berries, cherries, beans, tomatoes, broccoli, garlic, leafy greens, including nettle infusion, oak bark tea, and green tea. Onion skins, you say? How do you eat onion skins? Actually, what I do is I put them into a jelly bag and I throw them into my soup. I peeled the onions anyhow, and I have the peels right there on the counter. I just toss them in the bag, toss them in the soup, and I usually put in a root of astragalus or 2 in that bag and boil it in the soup. You can't eat the astragalus root either. At the end of my making the soup, I can just pull the onion skins, quercetin is in the soup, and my astragalus and all the good from that is in the soup, right out and serve my soup. Selenium is the anti-cancer mineral. It's critical for proper functioning of the immune system, and some studies have found that putting selenium on cancer cells kills them. That's it. Selenium, they're gone. Men with the highest levels of blood selenium are 65% less likely to develop prostate cancer than men with the lowest levels. And those who get their selenium from food get it even better. Where do we get selenium from? We're going to get it from nuts, especially Brazil nuts, fatty fish, those are anchovies on your pizza there, as well as mackerel and salmon. Whole wheat bread. Maybe we could find a pizza place with a whole wheat crust. I mean, I live in Woodstock, so almost all the pizza places have whole wheat crust. There you go. Whole wheat crust, tomato sauce, cheese to make the tomato sauce more bioavailable, extra garlic, little anchovies. See, pizza really is a prostate cancer preventative food. Lentils, wild rice, and sunflower seeds also provide lots of selenium and vitamin E, and you get a reduction in your risk. Microscopic examinations of the prostates of Inuit men whose diets are rich in fatty fish found only 1 out of 65 of them had prostate cancer. Very amazing. Fatty fish include salmon, sardines, herring, anchovies, and mackerel. Eat them 2 times a week and reduce your risk of prostate cancer by 50%. Avocados are an exceptional source of beta-sitosterol, a proven protector against prostate cancer. When eaten with other foods, avocados boost the absorption of cancer-preventative keratins. 3 tablespoons of avocado added to a serving of salsa or salad puts 13 times more beta-carotene, 8 times more alpha-carotene, 4 times more lutein, and 4 times more lycopene into the blood than just eating them by themselves. Pumpkin seeds are another excellent source of beta-sitosterol. Flax seeds. Flax seeds interrupt the chain of events that lead to cells becoming cancerous. Flax oil, however, increases risk of cancer, prostate cancer, and most cancers. Alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, a fatty acid abundant in flax oil, canola oil, and soy oil, seems to be the culprit. Men who consume the most ALA are twice as likely to be diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer as those who consume the least. Shall I go over that little list again? Stay away from flax oil, canola oil, and soy oil because they increase the risk of prostate cancer. Walnuts, pecans, and sesame seeds contain a unique form of vitamin E called gamma tocopherol. Unlike the alpha tocopherol that's found in supplements, gamma tocopherol is very active against cancer cells, especially cancer cells that are found in the lungs and the prostate. Nettle has been found to have a significant anti-proliferative effect on damaged prostate epithelial cells, and no cytotoxic effects were observed. That means it stops hyperplasia, or the growth of prostate cells, without harming you at all. My favorite way to ingest nettle is as an infusion. I make my stinging nettle infusion by putting 1 ounce of dried stinging nettle into a quart jar. I then fill the jar to the top with boiling water, stir the nettle down into the water with a wooden spoon, and then put some more water in the jar till it's filled right to the top, and then put a lid on it. I let it sit for 4 hours or overnight, then strain the liquid away from the herb, squeezing the herb to get all the good out of it, and refrigerate the liquid, and that's what I drink. It's really easy to make nettle infusions, easy to buy dried nettle. You certainly don't have to harvest your own. It tastes really good, and it also gives you a lot of energy. Wow. Here's some things that you might want to avoid. After 9 years, among 175,000 men aged 50 to 71, the risk of prostate cancer was 30% higher in those who ate the most red meat, the most processed meat, the most iron, the most benzoapyrene, which is found in grilled and barbecued meat, and the most nitrates and nitrites, which are found in processed meats. However, no association was found with the overall amount of red meat eaten. It turns out that it is mostly the processing, the grilling, and the barbecuing that tend to make that meat problematic for the prostate. After a comprehensive review of the research, the American Institute for Cancer Research found insufficient evidence to link milk and prostate cancer. Concerns that calcium or dairy products in general might promote prostate cancer have not been confirmed. Now, you want to know my real take on this. My real take on this is the stuff that you're being sold as meat and milk isn't meat and milk. So it's really difficult to know what's going on. My real suggestion is eat meat and eat milk, but eat the very, very best. Now, you're going to complain and say, well, I can't eat very much of it. Isn't that perfect? When we eat the very best and it costs a whole lot, we don't eat so much of it. Everything seems to work out. Meat and milk from grass-fed and wild animals is rich in conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, a substance which inhibits the growth of tumors. Perhaps that's why we find in native diets, which are primarily meat-based, like the people of the plains of North America who ate mostly a diet of buffalo, or the people of the far north who eat mostly a diet of meat and fat, or the people of the far south in Africa who eat milk, blood, and meat. These people have very little cancer. What's the difference? The difference is they're not eating that meat or that milk in processed form. They're eating it very close to the source, and they're getting it from wild animals or animals that have been allowed to choose their own food. Vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin. It affects about 200 genes in our bodies that help us to not get cancer, including ones that control the proliferation of cells, the differentiation of cells, and the death of cells. For cancer prevention, 2,000 IU a day is a good goal, but you know what? You do not have to take pills. 10 minutes of bright sunlight on the arms and the face will give you about 10,000 international units. Okay, shall we go over that again? 10 minutes of bright sun. That's like sun like at noon or up until about 2 o'clock. Bright sun on your face and arms for 10 minutes will provide you with 5 times the amount of vitamin D you need for a whole day. So if you go out twice during the week, you have more than enough. The body stores the surplus. Exposure to sunlight during the late spring, summer, and early fall will provide enough vitamin D for the entire year. If you decide to take supplements of vitamin D, don't take cod liver oil. I know that seems like cod liver oil would really be great, but it just doesn't seem to work out that way, because the men with the very highest levels of vitamin D actually have more prostate cancer. Here in the juicy middle of the show, I want to give you the juiciest bit of information. Here's the best bets for protecting your prostate. We've talked about most of these things, but here's a neat little list for you. The best bets for protecting your prostate against all distresses, but especially cancer, are everything from the cabbage family. Now, what's in the cabbage family? Well, we mentioned broccoli and cauliflower, and of course cabbage, but also turnips and radishes and kohlrabi and Brussels sprouts, and we shouldn't forget kale and collards and turnip greens and mustard greens, and of course that means turnips as well, and horseradish and wasabi. It's a big family, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All we're being asked to do is eat 4 half-cup servings per week. You know what? I usually eat a half-cup serving from this family on a daily basis just because I like them. Best bet, cabbage family plants. Best bet, lycopene from cooked tomatoes. Yay, pizza. Best bet, nettle infusion, 2 quarts a week. Best bet, omega-3 fatty acids from walnuts, leafy greens, and little fatty fish. Best bet, organic meat and milk. You don't have to have a lot of it. Best bet, physical activity, 30 minutes a day. You don't have to be sweating, just some activity. Best bet, selenium from food and vitamin D from the sun. Best bet, sterols from lentils, split peas, and black-eyed peas. Here's some things that you might want to consider limiting, if not perhaps eventually having none of. Alcohol, no more than 2 drinks a day, please. Caffeine, hey, there's nothing wrong with coffee. It's actually a health food, but no more than 2 cups a day if we're looking for the health of our prostate. Calcium, avoid supplements. It does seem to be a problem with prostate health and supplements of calcium. Flaxseed oil, we already talked about it, increasing cancer risk. Multivitamins, especially if you eat enriched foods, not good for the prostate, and we'll go over that in a little more detail. Spicy, peppery foods, I know you love them, but spicy, peppery foods, don't put it on your pizza. Go without the hot pepper flakes because it inflames your prostate. When your prostate is okay, now and then, a little hot pepper, okay, but don't make, like a thing of it here. Stress. What? You're supposed to get rid of your stress. I understand you can't get rid of your stress. Yes, you can. You can meditate. Everybody can meditate. You sit down, you close your eyes, you breathe slowly. That's it. No mumbo-jumbo. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to say a special word. You set your timer for 5 minutes and you meditate, and you know what? Almost immediately, you start to like doing it, and you really feel less stressed. Tobacco, tobacco is so, for some reason, just wants to go right down into the prostate. And even been having to tell women that if the man that they're looking to get pregnant with is a smoker, that it could actually cause birth defects because somehow the carcinogenic stuff in the tobacco goes right to the prostate. Now, a lot of men say, well, I think, that the best way to prevent prostate cancer is to take supplements. And I kind of wanted to see where those supplements were at. And I wound up with a list of them and give us some idea about how effective or not they might be. You might want to consider an antioxidant supplement. How come? Men with normal PSA levels benefited from very low doses of vitamin C, no more than 100 milligrams a day. Low doses of vitamin E, no more than 45 IU a day. Of selenium, no more than 100 micrograms a day, and no more than 20 milligrams of zinc a day. So you might want to consider it because it does seem to benefit it. But why not? Because antioxidant supplements increase the risk in men with elevated PSA. And you know what? These are tiny amounts of antioxidants. You can easily get them from your foods and nourishing herbal infusions. You certainly don't need to take a pill. I would avoid multivitamins. Why? Taking more than one multivitamin a day, or taking a multivitamin plus eating enriched foods, or even taking a multivitamin and extra selenium, zinc, or beta-carotene will increase the risk of advanced prostate cancer by 32% and double the risk of it being fatal. So I'd avoid multivitamins. I would avoid zinc supplements. Why? Men who take 100 milligrams or more a day of zinc have twice the risk of being diagnosed with prostate cancer. Why not? Very low doses of zinc do help to prevent prostate cancer, but remember, it's easy enough to get it from your food. I would avoid lycopene supplements. Why? They don't work. Instead, eat baked sweet potatoes and, let's hear it, pizza! Consider selenium supplements. Why? Men with the lowest blood levels of selenium are 4 or 5 times more likely to have prostate cancer than those with the highest levels. Supplemental selenium does reduce risk, and it reduces risk more in those whose intake of vitamin C and carotenoids is low. In other words, if you're generally eating a diet that is not very good, then selenium is going to be more helpful. In one study, 200 micrograms daily of high selenium yeast decreased prostate cancer incidence by an unheard of 2/3. Why not? Why wouldn't I consider selenium supplements? Because too much selenium, 800 micrograms a day, is as bad as too little. High blood levels of selenium are associated with aggressive prostate cancer. Men with adequate levels of selenium get no benefit from supplements. A study of 35,000 men given 200 micrograms of selenium or 400 IU of vitamin E or both daily for 7 years found no decrease in prostate cancer in the selenium group, but more type 2 diabetes. So I probably would consider, but not take, selenium. I would avoid vitamin E supplements, alpha tocopherol. Why? They actually increase the risk of prostate cancer by suppressing the absorption of cancer-fighting gamma tocopherol. I haven't been able to find if there's a specific study with vitamin E in men diagnosed with prostate cancer, but I know that in women diagnosed with breast cancer, a woman who's been taking vitamin E supplements is 7 times more likely to die in the year following her diagnosis than a woman who wasn't taking a vitamin E supplement. I would certainly avoid calcium supplements. Why? they appear to increase prostate cancer. Yep, it's not the milk that does it, but calcium supplements do seem to do it. Nourishing herbal infusions are safer sources of calcium, and if you say, oh, that's too much bother to make a nourishing herbal infusion with, it's not. Once you get into it, it's really, really easy. Schussler homeopathic cell salt calcium is another option. I would avoid DHEA. Why? Even in doses as small as 25 milligrams per day, it raised IGF-1 levels, and men with elevated IGF-1 are 4.5 times, that's 450% more likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer. A recent analysis of 250,000 men found absolutely no link between vasectomies and prostate cancer. So if you're worried about whether or not you should have a vasectomy, in terms of prostate cancer and overall health, I would say that it is a very good idea. Men who take statin drugs are half as likely to have advanced prostate cancer as men who don't take statin drugs. An especially strong link has been established between high total cholesterol, which is over 200, and advanced prostate cancer in men 65 and older. Aspirin has anti-inflammatory effects that inhibit the action of an enzyme that encourages the growth of prostate tumors. So the kinds of things that older men are encouraged to do for their heart health is actually pretty good for their prostate health as well. Do be aware that daily use of aspirin can cause internal bleeding, and if you are going to be using aspirin, you may want to do this under a doctor's supervision, not just because you think it might be a good idea to take it. I also want to mention boron. Before we're done, boron is a trace mineral that has been shown to have a very powerful effect in preventing prostate cancer. In fact, those who eat the most boron are one-third less likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer than one who eats the least. And this association is very, very specific to prostate cancer. In fact, we haven't found it with any other cancer. It just seems to be about prostate cancer. Fruits and nuts, all fruits and all nuts are excellent sources of boron. A glass of wine, a handful of peanuts, a serving of non-citrus fruit cup provides generous amounts. But watch out, because supplements of boron are not very good for our health at all. And let me just say again, and I'll probably say it for a fourth time as well, exercise, exercise, exercise. Doesn't have to be like, necessarily lifting weights. Really, a walk will be enough. I'm really thrilled to see out here in my country neighborhood, really is a country, it's not like a neighborhood at all, how many more people are walking and how much more community that creates. We now see so many more people on the road and wave and smile to them and exchange, the usual nice day, yes, indeed, too much rain or whatever, but just really wonderful. So get out and walk and make a stronger community too. Alternating between daytime and nighttime shifts on the job triples the risk of prostate cancer, according to a Japanese study of 14,000 men. Working just at night, however, did not increase the risk. Okay, well, we have seen a lot of great ways, including eating pizza, to help prevent prostate cancer. And we are going to be wrapping up our month devoted to the prostate by looking at what to do if you actually are diagnosed with prostate cancer, and that will be our fourth and final segment. This is Susun Weed, and I want to remind you that a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you, you will find in Down There, Sexual and Reproductive Health, The Wise Woman Way. And you can find that book at the usual places where you get books, or you can go to the wisewomanbookshop.com and find it Down There, as well as all of my other books. Green blessings. Thanks so much for being with me this week.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for taking us on a journey through your connection to the Earth and her green allies. Next week, we continue our discussion by focusing on the men in our lives and those dealing with prostate cancer. Be sure to join us. On behalf of Time Monk Radio, green blessings and be well.